Welcome to The Ripple, where extraordinary women executives get real about their career journeys. This season, thanks to our partnership with GNW Consulting, you'll hear even more stories from women leaders about how they're building visibility for themselves, their careers, and their companies. I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, and today we're joined by the fantastic Paige McPheely. She's the CEO at Base and the co-founder of 33 Vincent, in addition to being one of the founding executive members here at Wednesday Women. She's here to talk about creating more space and fewer expectations around your visibility. Paige, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I want to start off by getting some context about what visibility has meant in your career up to this point. And it sounds like maybe you're changing some things around in your day-to-day to focus on that even more. I just want to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. I was not one of those people who grew up thinking, I want to start businesses, and I have never really considered myself to fit in that persona of the stereotypical leader that we might imagine, that we've been conditioned to imagine, which for one, I'm not a man, so that already has me kind of in a different place, but I'm not someone who loves the spotlight. I'm someone who likes to kind of operate behind the scenes and help other people shine. So purposefully stepping more into the spotlight, having conversations like this, getting on more stages, meeting with more people has been a really scary thing, but really transformative. I look back to 10 years ago when I was imagining this, and it felt like the most terrifying thing I could imagine. And now it's something that feels confident. So it's been a great journey.
I love that. And you mentioned before we got on this call that you're kind of making some changes in your business to focus even more on that now. Can you tell me a little bit about what that means?
Yes. So we started our business 11 and a half years ago now. And it was one of those things that kind of took on a life of its own and was growing. And we didn't really need to be out there talking and networking. But then we raised some venture funding, we built software, we were all of a sudden playing in a different arena. And I think thought leadership today is kind of one of those things that can be great, but it can also be kind of icky, depending on how you execute it. And so it's felt like a space that we needed to be, but it's also felt like a space that was scary to me. And so we made a change a couple months ago now for me to focus more on the bigger picture and to try to get out in front of people and the team. We've got such a great team that they just can kind of take things and run with them. So it's a new chapter for all of us.
That's really exciting. And you mentioned that, there's all this VC funding and kind of more attention on the business. Is that what made you realize that it was time to focus more on thought leadership, or was there something else that made you think this is the right tool for us to keep growing?
It is partially for growing, but I think it was once I started to have more conversations with people. Our business grows through word of mouth, so that is part of it, certainly. The more people that we can talk to about their journey to receiving executive assistant help or help of any kind, I think the better for our business. But in doing so, I started to realize that the overwhelm and the stress that I felt of the grind and this race that we are running nonstop, it felt like sort of a table stake, something that was required as part of the journey of being successful and building something great and interesting. And the more I started to talk to other people, particularly women and mothers, realized, we're all doing this. And are we going to be 90 years old looking back thinking, I wish I would have worked more hours, or I wish I would have spent less time with my kids? And I just don't believe that you have to pick one or the other. I think you can build something really beautiful and successful and also take care of yourself and be there for your family and your loved ones. So the more we started to have this conversation, it felt like this is electrifying to all of us. So many of us are sharing this same journey, and we just want to talk about it and normalize it.
Yeah, what's the response to that been?
Very positive. A lot of people really resonating with it. The journey to getting an executive assistant usually looks something along the lines of you reach a desperate point and you're like, I need help right now, and it's too late. I already need it. And so getting to have those conversations with our clients over so many years has been so magical, and seeing them then receive help and be able to be a truer version of themselves as a result of that help is so, so cool. And so now having a slightly larger reach has just been really meaningful.
I think what's significant too, just about your own personal experience with this, is that, you are handing off things in your business so that you can focus on your voice. Not exclusively. You have a lot of things on your plate still, I'm sure. But I think there are so many times when the priorities are switched, when leaders are holding on to things in the business, they just can't give it away, but they give away their voice for someone else to execute, which is like their public reputation.
Right.
Like, I mean, this is what I do for a living. Like, I go straight for executives, and not necessarily to someone at that level, but like sometimes just to an assistant, like, just write me something on LinkedIn. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about that. Like, why your thought leadership is a task that you hold on to instead of outsourcing.
And that's such a good question because I do have a lot of help with the social media management side of things. We've got a few folks who work behind the scenes of making sure that we're seeing comments, that we're liking, that we're interacting, and helping me extrapolate on different ideas. So there can be a team effort. I'm someone who I just really, really dislike social media. I don't find joy in it. It's really draining to me. And so we tried to find a balance of how can the kind of the things, the tasks of social media be outsourced while you're still maintaining the actual message that's going out and the way that you want to communicate. I think we've struck a pretty cool balance. And then that allows me to focus on some longer form things. But yeah, if you're kind of covering anything with shoulds instead of I want to or I must do this, then I think you're not going to be expressing the most authentic form of yourself.
I think what's really great about what you just said is that you do have a team behind you, kind of like supporting the ancillary tasks of visibility. And I think that's something that gets talked about a little bit less. People talk a lot about creating content, getting on stages, writing a book, but there's an entire community that you're engaging, and that involves ongoing conversation and like not just posting and moving on with your life, but showing up and being part of those conversations that you're initiating. And that does take a lot of work. And so having someone to support you and say, hey, don't miss these comments. Hey, don't miss these messages seems like it go a really long way to making not only being on social media easier for you, but also to make your thought leadership more effective because you're engaging in that conversation.
Right. In a way that's not draining for me. I think that's so much of what help, especially in a professional setting, can unlock for you is that it's not just a one-to-one balance. You're not just taking X task off your plate that might have taken you an hour before. You don't just have an hour more of your time because you didn't spend an hour doing something draining you that is going to make you go slower or execute less efficiently or less effectively. It really has this compounding effect if you can get the things off your plate that drag you down, that don't make you shine, where you're not in your flow or your zone. There are people who do have those flows and zones, and like that can light them up to help you do those things. And I think that's something that's really misunderstood frequently with getting help. I think especially as women, it feels like a weakness to admit that we need help, and maybe it's very self-indulgent also to whatever type of help. It might be help with your kids or an executive assistant or someone who helps you clean your house, whatever it might be. It feels like we should be handling that. And there we are with the shoulds again.
Yeah.
But yeah, like once you can let that go and realize this person's actually like they want to do this. This is the job that they would like to do. And it's like, it's a win-win for everybody.
And that in your heart, you don't want to do it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And that's something that I've seen from a lot of women leaders. I thought it was interesting in my own business seeing how many people, men and women, would come through because they wanted to figure out the strategy for what to do. They knew they needed to be doing it. And it was really 50-50 men and women. But then when it came time to actually outsource the task of doing it, it was only men in my business for a really long time because women were looking at themselves and saying, I'm seeing myself in a new way for the first time and I'm not ready. Or I'm not ready to invest in myself this way. Or I just think that I should really do this, and then they don't. And so there's just all these things that come up for women where they kind of get in their own way with getting started. And with men, it was just like, take my money, take this away from me, just get it going.
Yes. Yes to all of that. We've seen that so many times.
Yeah. How did you get over that mindset?
Having a team and having people, it kind of started with nudges from the team, from our board saying, like, this is something that should be talked about. It's interesting. People are resonating with it. We should get out there and talk about it. And it's good for business. And that kind of helped me give myself the permission, which I think you just have to give yourself the permission. No one else can do that for you. You have to just accept that, yes, you are worthy of this, whatever it might be, that feels self-indulgent, like you're being lazy, whatever have you. And I think once I gave myself the permission, then we were able to build systems and put processes in motion that kept me going with the momentum. I'd be lying if I said that I don't have to remind myself all the time, like, yeah, this is work. It's okay that it's fun. And it's okay that I'm not always in back-to-back meetings. It's okay that my job tomorrow is going to look like writing, because I feel like if I'm not like really struggling and too busy and all these things, I'm not trying hard enough. So it's a constant journey.
That's such an important insight, that it doesn't have to be hard and it doesn't have to be miserable in order for you to be doing a good job and for you to be doing your job, right?
Right. Yes, exactly.
You know that moment when the one person who knows how everything works suddenly doesn't work there anymore? Your go-to person is gone, and no one seems to know how to use one of your critical platforms. It happens. GNW Consulting can step in when your team hits that kind of gap. They keep things running while you figure out the next move, whether that's backfiling, rethinking the stack, or just getting your footing again. They've got the skills, the calm, and the context to make transitions feel a lot less stressful. Plus, they're a big supporter of Wednesday Women and the way we amplify women execs authentically. So check out gnwconsulting.com to learn how they can support teams during pivotal moments and make life easier for modern marketing orgs. Yeah, and what I'm hearing from your story is also that something that made this easier for you was kind of having a message you wanted to get out into the world and feeling driven by that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that what I was just saying is really at the crux of it, of like we carry around these expectations. I think so many of us that are high performers and high achievers carry around these expectations, and I think it's magnified for women. And so I always kind of imagine it's this backpack of expectations that we are lugging around with us, maybe even trying to climb the corporate ladder, or, whatever you want to call it. But so many of those things that we have in our backpack, no one put them there. We put them there. And they're stupid things. I was just talking with someone the other day of, when you're raising money, it's not just raising money. It's, what am I going to wear? Am I going to talk about my kids? Are they going to think that I'm not going to be focused or dedicated enough because I have kids? Are my nails painted? Like, these are the spirals that I would go through. And when I started talking about it, so many other women were like, yes, me too. I don't care about my nails. But it felt like something that I had to have organized if I was going to present myself for a pitch. And I don't think that that's a common thing on the male side of fundraising. Like, felt like that was critical for me to be able to do this pitch successfully, which is so silly, but no one told me that. Like, I took that upon myself. And so starting to let those things go felt like something they just really should be talking about more.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love the analogy of the backpack because, yes, we're putting the things in the backpack, but also even when somebody else is putting something in our backpack, it's just a backpack. You could take it off.
Mm-hmm.
You could put it down. You could take stuff out of it. You could give it to someone else.
Yeah. And that would probably be better for everybody in some scenarios.
I want to tell you this funny and random story that I was just reminded of. When I was a kid, my mom had a giant purse, as many moms do. Gotta have everything in it. And I remember we were at the mall and, she started to not feel good. And later that night, she felt worse and she didn't know what was going on. And so she ended up going, I don't remember if it was urgent care or the hospital, but she went to the doctor that night. She thought she was having a heart attack. But it turned out that her bag was so heavy, it was causing these muscle spasms across her chest. And they were just like, you need to carry a lighter bag.
Oh my gosh. What a beautiful metaphor that is.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, how many times do we feel like we're giving ourselves a heart attack because of all the stuff that's in our metaphorical backpack?
Right.
Right?
Exactly. Like you can let it go. And I find it so valuable, whether you're doing it for yourself or asking other people, like, what would happen if you either put the bag down or maybe you take out the, I don't even know what in their box. Like, what did she have that was so heavy?
I
The
don't
water
even know.
bottles nowadays, I don't know. But like, what would happen if you didn't have those with you and they were needed? Like, probably nothing. Generally, the answer to this.
Yeah, we were in a mall. We weren't in like a national forest. Actually a matter of survival.
But you never know. You never know. And I definitely fall in that camp pretty easily if I'm not careful. But I do think we're literally killing ourselves and giving ourselves heart attacks by carrying around this metaphorical backpack.
Yeah, sometimes it surprises me that women still live longer. Just we put ourselves under so much stress, just like incredible amounts of stress. Like, how is this not affecting us more?
It's because we got stuff to do.
We do. We do. You cannot stop us. I want to come back to something that you said earlier in the interview. Something that I related to a lot was not imagining yourself as a business owner at the beginning of your career and being somebody who, didn't necessarily want to be in the spotlight. I'm curious if there was a period for you when you started this business or maybe when you realized you had to be in the spotlight more. Did you have to change your mentality from being sort of an obedient employee into something else?
Yes, definitely a change in mentality. Less so from obedient employee, but more from being behind the scenes, helping other people find their jam to stepping on stage. And it was when we, without going into too many details, we started one business, then started another business that raised money. It was a software business that bought the first business. And so it was when we entered that venture-backed tech world where I found myself as the CEO of a venture-backed tech company. That was just such a different game that we were playing at that point. And the people that I was interacting with were so different than anyone I'd interacted with. And so it's not just that now you're having to go pitch and raise money in front of all of these people who hold all the control of the money and you really need it to get your idea off the ground. But they were almost all men. And then we did raise the money and now I'm part of these great investor networks and I'm going to these various events and it was almost all men, almost all white men. And I've made some very, very good friends in these groups, but it took me a couple years to find my voice in that because it felt like I had to sit in with them, whatever version of me that I could that sit in with them versus being myself. And again, they didn't make me do this. There was no pressure to do that. It felt like that's how I had to show up in that space because that's what everybody else was like. So yes, I would say a huge change. I look back at the Paige that started either of those businesses and I don't know her at all.
That's so interesting. Are there things that you can remember or describe about either what you were doing that felt performative or what it is you changed that felt more true to yourself?
It was letting go of the shoulds. Like I should dress this particular way or speak this particular way or my presentation should look a particular way. And I find that anytime one of my investors has this great line of like, my therapist tells me I need to stop shoulding all over everyone.
Yeah.
So the moment that I realize I'm shoulding all over myself, then I feel like I've got to step back and figure out what is inauthentic here that I need to let go of. I think I was just shoulding a lot.
When you think about the ways that you were presenting yourself and those shoulds, did it feel like you were just super buttoned up and had to be perfectly polished and, something like that? And now you're just more kind of come as you are?
Yes, that's exactly right. It's not only your appearance where you have to be perfectly polished and look energetic and probably look younger than you are. And I was once advised, don't mention that you have children when you're fundraising and total BS, I think. And so feeling like you have everything, you have all of the answers. And I think a lot of leaders feel pressure to have all of the answers. But in so many ways, we have more questions probably than our team. And I think the journey of being able to acknowledge that and have that vulnerability with the people that I work the most closely with, which for us is we're a small team, for all of them, that's when the magic started to happen, because their ideas, they felt safer to share ideas and ask their questions and to point out things that didn't make sense. And yeah, like that's a huge difference.
I think it's funny when people say that you shouldn't talk about having kids.
Yes.
Because the mental image of like a startup founder for so many people is like the 20-something-year-old male, right? And sure, he probably doesn't have kids, but he probably also hasn't had many responsibilities yet.
Right.
And so maybe he's got the bandwidth for this to be his sole focus. But I don't know, you show me a mother, and that's somebody who not only like knows what it means to be responsible for other human lives, but also knows how to juggle an impossible number of things and make impossible things happen and find time.
And when you're a parent, every decision you make for how you spend your time is a trade-off. And so if you're killing time at the office or whatever, and it's not purposeful, you're probably paying someone else to be with your kids, or at the very least, you're just not with them. And that trade-off is something, it's a decision you have to make constantly over and over again. And I love that you mentioned juggle, because we always talk about it. I did not come up with this. I wish I had, but repeated it many times over the years. Like, all of us are juggling things constantly. And some of the things we're juggling are made of glass and some are made of plastic. And we have a different set of things that we're juggling for a personal or professional. And so figuring out, like, we're going to drop something, and how can you try to only drop the plastic, which might mean catching a glass professional one and dropping a personal plastic one. And that's helped me so much, because you just can't do it all, even though it feels like we need to.
I wonder if it'll ever stop feeling like we need to do it all. But, not today.
Well, you asked, like, why am I having these conversations? And I think a lot of it also is to remind myself, like, you write the things that you need to be told almost, and because it's a constant struggle to let it go.
Yeah. Well, I want to finish our time together by asking you what advice you might give to a woman who wants to start building her own visibility authentically, without sacrificing herself. What would you say to her?
I mean, at a very high level, just be yourself. Don't should yourself into any corners of what you think you should do. But like, more tactically, a friend turned me on to a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Classic.
Heard of this? And yes, and like just buy it. Start there. And it's going to be this journey where you figure out, like, what does your authentic self really want to say and put out there, and what's the form that it's going to take to get out there? Because it might be words, maybe it's something else. And that, for someone like me that is so type A and such a high achiever, I needed that structure to unlock the creativity, which I think is fascinating. Just like lean into it. You've got brilliance in you, and let it out.
That was a great answer. There's a book recommendation in there. There's a mantra in there. Thank you so much, Paige. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now that we're at the end of today's episode, we hope you'll reflect on how Paige's story might inspire your own. What are some of the shoulds weighing you down? And what can you take out of your backpack of expectations? If today's show inspired you to think of an extraordinary woman leader in your life, let her know about the Wednesday Women Executive Membership. It's a safe space for women leaders to tackle any challenge, ask questions, and uplift others. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your ratings help us grow and inspire even more people. Thank you to our Season 2 sponsor, GNW Consulting, to our executive producers, Melissa Moody and Leslie Greenwood, and to our technical producer, Yelena Georgievich, with Kind Media Productions. I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, hoping the small ripple creates a big wave in your life. Until next time.